I felt super guilty. I felt like a burden. My addiction to alcoholism was fueled by a shame of who I was as a core human being, feeling broken, feeling less than, like everybody else is a better human being than me. This is what I came here to do. I get emotional talking about it. This is part of my purpose. This is the reason I came to this earth, to heal the generations before me in my family, to heal the ones going forward.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today's guest, Sam Gibbs Morris, is a coach, speaker, psychedelic expert, just an amazing story that you're going to hear of where he came from to where he is today. I actually, last second, was able to get this guy to come in and do the podcast, and I think you're going to really, really enjoy hearing all about what he's done with his life, and we go deep on a ton of topics today. So check it out. Let's get started.
Cool.
Where'd you move from?
Wow, that's a good question. From the last place before here was San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
So I did SF, the city, for, I think it was like 2013 to 2017.
Okay.
And then I had an existential crisis in 2017 where the weather in San Francisco was just crushing me.
Oh, wow. Like seasonal depression kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely some sads going on. You know, San Francisco is gloomy.
Yeah.
Like they have like 3 or 4 nice days a year, and that nice is like 70 degrees, and it's really sunny and nice, but I'm a hot weather guy. And so after 4 years of that, I thought it was the external stuff. I thought it was, the girlfriend she lived in Sunnyvale, which was 30 miles south. And I'm like, this is too far to drive. This is a pain in the butt. Made up all these things.
Yeah.
So I'm like, one day driving around and I looked up on my phone, like, what are the sunniest cities in the United States?
Is this one of them?
No, this did not pop up. This was not on my radar at the time.
Yeah.
Denver did, though. Denver's the most, like 320 days of sun every year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, skiing, sun, let's do it. And I just decided one day. And then 2 months later, I was there. So I left a really high-paying personal trainer job, great girlfriend, moved to Denver, and I get to Denver, and now the girlfriend decides that this long-distance thing is not going to work. So she meets somebody else, and personal training in Denver is a non-existent thing because it's so sunny.
Is that right?
Everyone hikes and bikes and skis and does all these active things outside. So, the hourly rate in the Bay Area is like $250 an hour because, tons of money and the weather's shitty. And so I get to Denver and I'm like, okay, so I can like decrease my cost of living by half and still charge this much. And the personal training rates in Denver are more like 65 on the big top end. So relationship fell apart, career fell apart, and I'm still depressed. And then at that point I was like, okay, this is me. And so I hightailed it back to California, moved down to San Jose area, Mountain View, where my girlfriend lived, rekindled that relationship. Kind of like it was one of those things that was really awful at the time, and in hindsight, everything I needed. Yeah, because it pushed me out of. I was a personal trainer at the time, so it pushed me beyond that because I recognized that like all this stuff starts up here in the mental health side, personal and emotional health, and so it really got me on a path of looking at that. And then I started helping guys. Originally, it was helping guys recalibrate their life after sobriety. So not so much a drunk guy coming to me like, hey, I need to get sober. It was more like, I just got out of rehab, 90 days. Life is crazy. How do I balance all this? And so I started doing that. And then I did mental health coaching. And then that evolved into what I do now. So that terrible period in 2017 it was one of those things that pushed me in the right direction. Yeah. So I stayed there for 2 more years. Then that relationship ended. We really, honestly, never recovered from that. We both kind of held on and fought for it, but it was never the same. And so then in 2019, that ended, and I was going to either go here or San Diego. And I said, I love California. I love San Diego. Let me just go check out Austin. I had never been. But I knew Austin had college football. Yeah. I knew it had barbecue and hot weather, Latin women, like all these things that I love. Like it was checking a lot of...
Me too.
Yeah, right?
Austin.
I know.
Yeah.
So check this out. So I get here in October of 2019. I spend like 10 days here so I can like get a feel for the city. It's a Saturday afternoon. I'm watching college football, Little Woodrow's on 6th, eating tacos. There's a Day of the Dead festival going on downtown, like across the street. Yeah. And it's 81 degrees and sunny. And I'm like, okay, this is it. Yeah. home. I get it. Heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I signed a lease the next day.
When was this? What year?
This was 2019.
So 2-3 years ago. 4 years ago.
4 years ago,
That's flying by. Wow. Yeah.
And so then that was right before, COVID hit, pandemic hit. And so I got 3 good months here, and then everything shut down. And 2020, and we can get into that too, like what a year that was for me and for everybody. But 2021, that year set me up so that in 2021, I'd set up this life to be the digital nomad, like this freedom that I so deeply crave. And I'm sitting there, I was in Fit for Service, so Aubrey Marcus's, mastermind community. And his challenge was go in the dark and see what comes up. So I got in a float tank for 2 hours. And it was like, go to Tulum, go to Tulum, go to Tulum. And I'm like, why have I not been going to Tulum? Like, I created this life where I can work from anywhere, and I'm just sitting here in Austin. Like, not that Austin's terrible, but like, let's go experience some things. So I went to Tulum 2 days later. Stayed for 8 months.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I came back for a week to pack my apartment.
Where? Did you get an apartment there?
Yeah. So I did Airbnbs for 3 weeks in January. And the real kicker was that my nervous system was just, all I heard was thank you. It felt so calm and so at peace. And I didn't know why. I didn't know anything. I just knew this was the experience of it. So I was there for those 3 weeks, and I signed a lease for 6 months, came back here, packed up all my shit, went back to Tulum, stayed until August. And so what I was really craving was this deep disconnection. I needed to go inward. I needed to really step back from my life and just say, there are a lot of dirty energetic chords here in the States, like family, friends, experiences. It was just, my fight or flight was so heightened that I couldn't really experience anything. And I was addicted to it. That's why I had stayed, created this life of freedom, but didn't take advantage of the freedom. And so my nervous system, I got to Tulum. I remember I just got done with a psychedelic ceremony. I was in the water, looking back at the shore, and I was just like, whoa. This is one of those moments where I have manifested something that I thought was never going to happen for me. Everyone else can go to Tulum and go to the parties and do all the things, but I was like, nah, just never. It's not something that's on the table for me. And I had this moment where, wait a second, I'm doing it.
Yeah. And
I was like, okay.
What happened after 8 months? Why'd you come back? Did you feel?
I was ready. So the real reason that I was in Tulum, I was there to prepare for ayahuasca. So when I was there, I found a retreat down in the Amazon, Arcana, and they had a 3-week deep dive ayahuasca intensive, shamanic big deal deep dive stuff. And so when I was there in Peru, the medicine, and I decided that okay, Mexico had served its purpose. It was to disconnect and go inward and get clear about who I was and what I needed and all these things that the fight or flight was not allowing me to see.
Yeah.
And so, after that was in June. And so I went back to Tulum, and it was a different experience. I was ready to go back to the States. I was ready to come back home, and, we have it really good here. All the chatter aside and all the things, there's a lot of really good things about life here. And
life here in Austin or the United States?
I think both, but Austin was go back to Austin, I had disconnected from my family, my mom and sister, go reconnect with them. Mexico's great. Logistically, Wi-Fi, cell service, it's a little bit limiting. And so the business was I had a lot of downloads about the direction of the business. And it's go back to the States and step into this purpose that you've discovered. Step into this reason that you have now. And so that was the end of Mexico for me.
That's interesting. I live in the DR.
Yeah,
and we're at this point, we're 9 months in, I guess, right? To the time we committed to a year. So August would be a year. And we actually, where we live, Tulum, I think is what Punta Cana is now. Or I'm sorry, Tulum is becoming what Punta Cana is now. When I used to go to Punta Cana years ago, when my wife and I first met, we've been married 13 years. We got married there. It's nothing like it is today. Today, it's Austin. It's fully developed, right? Yep. Cell service, Wi-Fi, all of that stuff. But there's still, you said it well. I've been trying to articulate this to people. We're like, well, why would you come back? I'm like, there is an edge. There is just something a degree. It's like peak performance, right? You go from peak performance is going from you were doing really, really good, but it's that turning up the volume just a little bit more. It's the biggest leap, but the smallest leap all at the same time. And that's what it is. As simple as like infrastructure or the ability to like just get a book shipping. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Just it sounds so silly to say it, but when you combine it all, it's just there's this like slight deficit. Now, made up for by, like you said, I'm in Michigan, so it's gray in the winter. Made up for by the same thing. Like I still wake up giddy. I go outside, it's sunny, it's beautiful, and I pinch myself. Still, 9 months in, right? It's
awesome.
like it just every day is like a vacation. It feels like in some ways, but long term, I feel myself like, all right, it's time to re-enter. Like I could do it now, to be honest with you, but August feels like the right time because you're right. I don't think we I don't. It's not from like a white man or whatever perspective. Like I don't think we truly appreciate until you step away from it. Just like even that little percentage difference that I'm feeling or that you felt like Wi-Fi is not ideal. Whatever. Even though people could point to other benefits that may feel like they offset that, you don't realize how good you got it here.
Yeah, it takes something like losing a bank card.
Yeah,
like you lose a bank card in a foreign country, you're like, oh my god. What am I going to do?
We use one card for everything. It's not a debit, but a credit card. And it got hacked. It happens, right?
Yeah.
But like to get that card back, like we'd switch to another card. I mean, it wasn't tragic, but it made me go like, well, what if this card now I don't have a ton of cards. Right. I don't have a million credit cards. I have like 3 or 4, right? So like, what if this card gets hacked? In the meantime, while it's taking 2.5 weeks, like in the US, I'd have that card in a day, 2 days, right? Yeah, it'd be quick. But 2 weeks, 3 weeks before I get the card back.
If you get it at all.
If you get it at all, right? Because it goes through like a virtual inbox, then it gets shipped to like my mom, and then my mom ships it over.
Go through DHL and can't go to UP. It can't go to the Postal Service because they don't communicate with foreign countries. And it's like
it's such a simple stupid thing. I can't get blue check verified on Instagram.
Oh yeah, right.
Because it's only available in the US based accounts. And even though I'm here, I thought, when I come to Austin, it's going to reset itself. No, it still says your account's based. It's smart enough to know, like, well, you've been there. Like, you're a Dominican-based account. So blue check verified may sound like, it's an ego thing. Like, no. Paying for blue check verification right now improves reach. Yeah. And improving reach helps me build my brand. Help build my brand is income.
Absolutely worth it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So
and like the help desk thing, and like if you're going to get your account hacked, or it takes care of a lot of
issues, right? So even as simple as like the ability for me to pay Meta $14 a month is limited because I'm in another country.
Right.
It's fucked up, but anyway.
No, it's true, because that's what matters. Like even grocery shopping after a while is like, it was cool to like, go out in the culture and experience it. And then after a while, you're like, man, it's a pain.
Well, they don't like fully developed grocery stores there in Tulum?
It's hit or miss what you're going to get. Like it could be really fresh fruit, or it could be like literally a moldy tin of blueberries.
Oh yeah, that's where I mean, like I think Tulum's I've heard, I haven't been, but Tulum's got. It's like it became a hot spot. It's starting to get developed. Honestly, like that's one thing. Punta Cana is fully like you get.
Oh yeah, it's like America.
It's westernized, like the whole thing. It really is. Like we're in a great spot. We live in an amazing community, and
awesome.
But still, like even that little bit of deficit. It's interesting that you brought that up. But fight or flight. I want to go back to flight. I mean, by the way, you made a point about psychedelics. I know you're in that space and you coach people in that space or whatever. And I talk about it a lot because I've in the last year have dipped my toe into the water.
Awesome.
So I've not having ever like smoked a joint in my life to full on hero's dose of mushrooms.
Yeah.
And what you said about floats though, like that's for people that are like, all right, this sounds like woo-woo bullshit to go get high on a couch somewhere and trip your ass out. I'm not ready for that. But you 2 hours in a float, you start to see shit.
Yep.
Right?
That whole darkness thing.
Yeah.
And this is what, like, you hear people go to these darkness retreats now. Aaron Rodgers went, Aubrey's been, like, everybody goes. There's something that happens in that moment when you honestly can't tell if your eyes are open or closed. And you think like, no, my eyes are closed, my eyes are open. Like you think you would know.
It's true.
You get to a point where it's like, I don't know. And then that's when the pineal gland kicks on, and like the real, like these like psychedelic experiences.
Colors and hallucinations and all of that.
Yeah, the darkness takes on a color. Like you start to see things, and you start to, you kind of question where you are in space. And it's that whole, there's so many aspects to it that are just like, it takes us so far out of the normal upright walking, decompresses the spine. Like it's a level of alignment that we just never feel. Even on a mattress, your head's a little forward, like all these things. And you spend enough time in there and you do it enough. Like I think there's a lot of value with floats, especially of familiarity. And this goes for psychedelics as well. Like the more familiar you are, the more you trust, the more comfortable you are, the quicker you can get into the deepness of it, the depth of it.
Familiar with you?
With the experience.
With the experience.
Yeah.
Sorry, got you. Yeah.
So like, I remember when I first started doing floats, I was in San Francisco, and the first couple, I was, thrashing about. Oh, I don't know what's, it's kind of, you start bumping into the walls. Yep. And then after a while, you're like, you get in and you're like, stillness is the key. Like, you don't want to bump into a wall because it's going to take you out of the experience.
Yep.
And so when you do get into that experience, it's like you start to like hear the voices, and you start to feel the feelings in the body that don't get to come out a lot because you're literally depriving yourself of several senses.
Yeah. Let's level set with you. Some backstory to get to where you are today. So, I mean, I read a lot about you through, what you've done. I watched a lot of your reels and everything. So
thank you.
Give us an idea of, or give me an idea of, your beginnings and what led you to, let's say up to San Francisco and this journey you've kind of been on since then. But give us a backstory before that.
Yeah. So I grew up in Vermont. I was there for the first 18 years of my life. Grew up skiing every winter. Like, you grew up in Vermont, skis are strapped to your feet.
Where were you in Vermont?
Stratton, Manchester area. So sure. southern part, right there by kind of Albany, Western Mass. So skiing was a huge deal. I was a ski racer because everyone. It's water skiing in Florida. It's whatever else. It's lakes in Michigan. It's the same thing. Yeah. So that was there. I was more of a tennis player, though. I was a warm weather summer guy. So I gravitated towards tennis and golf, and Vermont doesn't really support a tennis career. Because your time, it's limited because if it's summer you can play whenever, but again that's like they say the summer in Vermont is June 4th. So
it's true.
Yeah, it's so true. And so in the winter it was driving 45 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour to an indoor court, or on the weekends driving all over New England. So tennis played a huge role in my life for a lot of reasons. One is it was one of those things I picked up and I just was good at it. I just, the eye-hand coordination was there, the footwork was there, like it was all there for me. And I loved that. It was beautiful. At that time, I was also having an experience, let me start by saying this. Until I was about 38 years old, 35 or so, if you would ask me about my childhood, I would have said it was amazing. There was like no fighting in the household, no abuse, everything was good. There was always parties. We traveled. I played tennis and golf and skiing, and very, very good.
Interesting.
Yeah. And also in my life at that time, at mid-30s, things started to happen, mostly addiction and alcoholism.
It started in your 30s?
It became to a head in my 30s. So when I was about 33 was when things started. 33 to 38 was when things really, the shit hit the fan, so to speak.
Yeah.
It started in my early 20s when I stopped playing tennis. And so as I dove into that and started looking at that, I looked at my inner child, and I looked at the shadows that were happening now, and like reverse engineered the whole thing back to what was my childhood? What was really going on in childhood? Because you sit in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous and you hear sexual abuse, you hear alcoholic household, you hear physical
trauma.
Abuse. Yeah. You hear all of it. And I'm just like, I don't have that. Like what's going, like, why am I here? Like why am I in this seat? And why did I experience jail and hospital and rehabs and broken relationships? All the things that you experience in addiction. I don't have any of these markers that people talk about. And so I was like, let's start digging. So I dug into my childhood, and my childhood was very different than all my peers, very different than my sisters. I was born with severe asthma and severe food allergies. And not only that, I had there's the esophagus works in a way that it kind of massages food down. Hang on, stop doing that.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Massages food down into the stomach and where it gets digested. I had esophageal spasms. So what that means is that I would eat a piece of meat and it would get stuck in my throat. I've had pieces of rice stuck in my throat where I had to have Heimlich maneuver done on me. Pieces of salad. 5 or 6 times before the age of 15, I had the Heimlich maneuver done because there was something stuck in my throat. So I had these experiences that I didn't really ever take account for, as far as a lot of the other stuff outweighed it. And I had in my early 20s, graduating college, I was living in North Carolina, had a great life, had really good friends, was partying a lot, in control, and job at a bank, and met my ex-wife, and like there was things that I was like, I don't really have any traumas, no real problems, and then all of a sudden, shit hits the fan, and it's like, okay, what's going on here? So I looked at my experience of childhood. There was bullying because of the way I breathed, and so if you look at things like my addiction, alcoholism was fueled by a shame of who I was as a like core human being, feeling broken, feeling less than, feeling like everybody else is not has it better, but is a better human being than me. And this started because I felt so different than all my peers growing up. So a lot of social anxiety. I would manifest asthma attacks to avoid going to birthday parties because it was such a terrible experience to go to a birthday party and fear having an asthma attack there, or have the kids pick on me for my breathing.
How old? Okay, what was the bullying age range? The peak of it.
So there was no like physical bullying. It was like kids would walk by me in the hallway at school and feign having an asthma attack.
Yeah.
Shame me.
Yeah.
And so another one would be like if they're eating a Snickers bar, they'd like wave it in my face, be like, oh, peanuts. And that was one of my allergies. And so it wasn't like not the typical like I'm going to beat you and put you in a locker kind of bullying, but it was shame. And so shame, what I've learned is that shame begins when we feel humiliation, rejection, abandonment for a basic need attempting to be met. So breathing, eating, basic needs. And I would feel shame around those things, shame around the way I breathed, the way I was breathing. And so that social anxiety, team sports, I loved playing basketball, I loved playing soccer, I loved baseball, flag football, like I loved all of it. And in those moments, halfway through a game, I would have an asthma attack. And the kids would either sometimes even the coaches would be like, oh, get them off the field. Yeah. And this was like late 70s, early 80s when, PC wasn't really a thing. And it was, what do they call it? Free range parenting.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
We drank out of fire hose or the hose outside. Yeah. I mean, it was what it was. And so I experienced this separation. And so I was like, I recognized that it was really uncomfortable. And so I found tennis. This is where I picked up a tennis racket one day, started taking a lesson, and I'm just like, wow, this is like super fun and super easy. And it also is an individual sport. So a lot of things here. It's an individual sport, so there's no other. I felt super guilty. I felt like a burden to the teams I was playing on and my family. Like I felt like for some reason I had this idea that if I didn't have asthma or allergies, we would be like millionaires and be rich and traveling all over the world.
Funny how we put that on ourselves.
And I was 5.
Right.
Like where did that even come from? And this gets into now like, okay, I brought some things from past lives in here, and it's like is this my trauma to carry around, or am I carrying this for somebody else? And I've learned a lot about where it comes from now. And so this tennis took away the burden, because you know what? If I have the second thing is that tennis is like I think they did a study that out of like a 5-set Grand Slam match, so these can be anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. In a 3-hour match, they actually have about 30 minutes of actual activity of tennis. Like that's because the points are short.
For an asthmatic, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Lots of rest, switch sides. You're never really pushed to the point where you're going to have an asthma attack. And so this was just like, I'm like, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Like and then being that I was good at it, I got the opportunity to travel around New England playing tournaments every weekend. So all through from 7th, 8th grade, all the way through high school, I was kind of removed socially because I was more interested in playing tennis. And I'm not saying, I never have felt like, I was robbed of a childhood, or it wasn't like the typical tennis parent thing, like, Capriati experience with her dad. It was, I really, and I still to this day believe, like, I just chose that because I've loved it. And I still, like, I think if I had to do it over, I would do it again. There's a shadow side to that, of course. Mm-hmm. So that was the experience of childhood. Was, on the surface, everything seemed great, but also looking back, I know now there was a ton of fear, there's a ton of separation, a ton of shame, ton of CPSD, complex trauma, of like repeatedly 3 or 4 times a year, I would end up in the hospital for a week. One time I was playing Little League baseball, and passed out on third base because I had a severe asthma attack from running around the bases. And next thing I know, I wake up in a tent in the hospital. And this was all just shame building in my body.
Wow. So I'm assuming when tennis ends, early 20s,
yeah,
you talked about a shadow side, and you go where you go where you know you're going to go on that. But my assumption is that it's like the vice is gone, like the thing that numbs it is gone. Tennis.
Yep.
Now what?
Yeah, and we can talk. I agree with you 100%. And I didn't have that language until 15 years ago.
Yeah.
At the time, it was that I was a tennis player. That was my identity. Like you go back to my hometown now,
exactly,
and
right?
Still, they're like, "You still play tennis?" Like first question I get.
No kidding.
And I'm like, yeah, here and there. Like it's not a huge part of my life anymore. And when I do play, I'm like, I should probably play this more because I enjoy it.
You still have asthma, by the way?
No.
Allergies?
Nope.
That's interesting. Continue.
Yeah, we can get into that.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. Tennis falls. So tennis, I go to college, tennis scholarship. At this point, I'm still dead set on being on the pro tour.
What college?
Belmont Abbey College, Division II school in North Carolina.
Okay.
I had a few D1 scholarships from schools in Pennsylvania, one in South Carolina, and I chose this school. My parents, we decided that for me going to a smaller school was better because of falling through the cracks, and I was. I knew I could play at this school. And so I was like, and me thinking, I'm only going to be here for 2 years. I'm going pro when I turn 19 or 20.
Yeah.
And so my freshman year, I'm playing basketball and I blew my knee out, my right knee. And so that pretty much meant, that was pretty much the kiss of death for a tennis career. I mean, so now professional tennis players peak 25 to 30, maybe early 30s. Back then, it was, if you weren't on the tour by 20 at the latest, you missed the boat. I mean, you had guys like Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras, Jim Courier, Michael Chang, winning Grand Slams at like 17 years old. And so I'm on that. Those are kind of the peer group that I was in with tennis. And so blow my knee out my freshman year and have like a real full-blown identity crisis because for the first time now I can't play tennis. And again, no awareness or consciousness level that I have now, I didn't recognize what was going on. I just was real upset that I couldn't play tennis.
Right. Yeah. This is all like, I know it's not like you're in the moment thinking this, well, my identity is gone. I don't have one, but unpacking it.
So I rehab it, come back, playing number one for my tennis team in college for 2 years, sophomore and junior year. Senior year, my coach calls me into his office and he said, Sam, he's like, it is very clear that you're burnt out on tennis. And I'd been playing tennis pretty much every day since I was 7 or 8, and now I'm 22, 23.
Yeah.
So that's a good 15, 16 years of real hardcore tennis. And I went to a tennis academy in Florida where my job, it was a job to play tennis. So, school from 7 to 9, tennis from 10 to 4:30 every day, school from 5 to 7.
I've heard of these. Yeah.
Yeah. It was hard. It was intense.
Yeah.
And so I, at the time he was right. Like that. So that when I wasn't playing tennis my freshman year because of my knee, I had a taste of a social life of like, oh, there's like friends, and I wasn't getting, and it was my first kind of indoctrination back into a culture of friendships and parties and socializing where instead of being the weird kid or the kid with asthma, like I was more so like admired because I was an athlete and like girls liked me and I was like, whoa, this is fun. And so, but I still in my head was like, no, tennis is it. And so all through college, I would drink like a college kid, keg parties, the whole thing. And if I had a match the next day, no drinking. It always took priority.
Yeah.
And then my senior year, my coach, I started kind of just like, not lashing out, but acting out. Like showing up to practice a little bit late, kind of goofing off a little bit. Like he recognized that he's like, you're burnt out. And I'm not going to pull your scholarship, but no more tennis team. And I was like,
oh, he booted you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's like, it's tennis is over for you. Oof. And at the time I remember thinking like, wow, this is really shocking.
Yeah.
And also like, okay, like kind of,
whatever.
Yeah. I'm kind of like,
you were burnt out.
Yeah. I'm kind of done.
Yeah.
Like it was, I felt this relief, which at the time, and then looking back, I can say like it was, that I was burnt out and that there was a monster building inside of me. And this was the drinking and the drugs. So you'll hear a lot of athletes talk about how like they were at the peak of their sport and they got into pain pills and it ruined their sport, or they got into drinking. You'll hear about it a lot in baseball with like Josh Hamilton, like drinking ruined his career.
That's true.
For me, it was kind of flipped in that the tennis career kept the drinking and the drugs underneath. It kept it at bay. So I was, luckily enough, I was strong enough, or
you were high functioning.
Well, I wasn't even drinking alcoholically at the time.
Oh, okay.
Like it was completely not a thing. Like I was like more of like a non-drinker almost, because tennis was so important to me. Like I would say no to a lot of alcohol and drugs because tennis was, And so then when tennis went away, what fills that void? That now I have a 15, 16-year void inside me of an identity of a tennis player. And I just, a lot of my friends would be like, you were just catching up for lost time, blowing off steam. It was the beginning of my alcoholism, was so early 20s.
You have kids?
No.
I wonder as a kid though, I asked this question to a lot of guests because I'm very, very curious about this. I have a couple of boys. Looking back now, and I just look at this like, for somebody listening, advice for parents, but whatever.
Yeah.
I tend not to care about who's listening. I actually curious for me as a parent, right, of a young boy or young boys who are, they haven't formed their thing yet, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't, but what could have been different? Is there anything that could have been different? Is there anything your parents could have done? And it sounds like if I'm hearing you right, by the way, I know the area because I grew up near Albany, so I know right where you are. It sounds like you had loving, caring parents who provided you everything that you needed. Yep. They were supportive of what you wanted to do.
Yep.
But and so are mine. But like that generation of parent, we're about the same age. Tends to be. It's like, if I don't see any problems, then I just we don't address it. Like you're the kid, I'm the parent.
Yep.
Kids are to be seen, not heard. Kind of do your thing, I do my thing. As long as I don't see problem, there is no problem.
Yep.
So I don't know. What could your parents have done? Do you think? How would your outcome have been different? Tennis would have been there, but when tennis goes away, is there a way is there something your parents could have done, or is there something in your upbringing that you can point to that would have been? And again, not blaming your parents, but just some tactic or strategy or way of being that when tennis went away, identity wouldn't have been so wrapped up in it.
The answer is no. This is my karmic contract.
Interesting.
This is my soul contract.
Karmic contract.
Explain that. This is my soul contract.
What is a karmic contract?
This is what I came here to do. This is what I'll get emotional talking about it. This is part of my purpose. This is the reason I came to this earth, to heal the generations before me in my family, to heal the ones going forward. So my dad was the original cycle breaker in the family, of the lineage. My contract was to come here and experience these things. The asthma, the food allergies, the shame, the bullying, the tennis, the addiction. There's no way it could have been any different. Now, if we want to talk about, could the parents have done anything? It's so hard because that's like a crystal ball thing.
Yeah. It's not even this is more
I don't think there was anything that my parents and this is one of the things is that I'm actually coming back to now, is because I went through that whole thing where my childhood was beautiful and perfect. And then I spent 15 years looking at how it wasn't. And I'm coming back now to having a lot of gratitude for it, for all they did for me. My mom rushing me to the hospital at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
My mom doing the Heimlich maneuver on me, friends' moms doing Heimlich maneuvers on me. I think in the time, being that it was late 70s, early 80s for most of this, they absolutely did the absolute best they could to watch out for me and to get me through. Like they saved me. And the saving thing is a whole nother ball game that we can get into. There was love there. Later on with the addiction, there became some problems in the family dynamic. Growing up though, it was keep me alive. And so there was, like I said, loving, nurturing. Like if our birthdays were their parties too. It was lots of people around, and we went to the Bahamas and New York City and Boston and had all these great experiences. I don't think there was anything as far as like an emotional intelligence level. Maybe I think about like breath work might have been great.
Sure.
And I've been doing breath work since I was 5 years old. Not like a full on like breath work like it is now.
No, I get it.
But like doctors would give me practices, like when you have an asthma attack, breathe like a snake was one of the things, which is essentially regulating your vagus nerve. Now I know that.
Yeah.
I would have said meditation, breath work, like cultivating calmness and spirituality. We were never religious. There was never like a direct, like you're going to church or any kind of that thing. We were free to experience whatever we wanted to. If I was to go back and say, knowing what I know now, I would have loved to have been in sweat lodges when I was 8 years old.
Would have been loved to be what?
The sweat lodges.
Sweat lodges.
Native American sweat lodges.
Or
Thomas Calls. Like,
yeah.
My parents were hippies.
Yeah.
Like full on, like Woodstock hangover hippies.
Sure.
Like before I was born, they were living on a commune in Vermont.
Wow.
Before that was a giant house in Cooperstown, New York.
Oh, that's funny. I lived right near Cooper. Oneonta.
Yeah.
Yep.
Johnny Cake, it was called.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
and so, they
had his hippie. Cooperstown's fairly hippie. I mean, it's gotten a little bit more bougie, but Vermont is all hippie. So
it's total hippie. So you go there now, it's all these old 70s hippies just playing tennis and golf and driving around in motorcycles, and
that's true.
It's a really funny place.
It is true.
So the answer is, in a perfect world, knowing what I know now, breathwork would have been great. Some meditation would have been great. Some spirituality would have been great, and there's nothing they could have done to protect me from.
Yeah, I get it. Like, it's your path. That makes sense. All right. So 100%. You're going through this for a number of years. What's the depths?
The depths. So 23, graduate college, held it together for the next 7 years. Got married and got divorced. Married at 27, divorced at 29. Not because of alcoholism. It just I recognized 2 years in that this was not my person. Yeah, this was not my marriage to be in. The depths were a suicide attempt in 2009. That was pretty much an experience, and I didn't know this was a suicide attempt until ayahuasca in Peru in 2021.
What do you mean by that? You didn't know it was a suicide attempt?
Yeah. So in 2009, I had just survived my first oral cancer. So I got oral cancer in 2009, and they were able to excise it and remove it. And I had just survived that, so I take on this persona of I just survived cancer, I dodged a bullet, let's fucking go, let's live, let's rage, let's party.
Yeah. That
led me to one day I was at a Carolina Panthers football game. We started drinking 9 a.m. at the tailgate, and this is now 6 p.m. And I remember walking out of the second story of this bar onto the balcony. This was downtown Charlotte. There's a place called the Epicenter there, which is it's one of those deals where it's an outdoor mall type of place, 3 or 4 stories. I walk out. Next thing I know, I wake up in the hospital in the trauma unit on Monday morning. No idea how I got there. Catheter in, my arm in a sling, my neck in a the neck thing,
the brace, whatever, yeah.
Excuse me. And just what the hell's going on here? And doctors come in, they see me wake up, and the doctors come in and they're like, yeah, you fell off the second story of the bar balcony 35 feet and landed on the pavement down below. And I have no recollection of that. I did not until 2021. And what it was is that I thought I just fell off the balcony, and I turned into a little bit of a local celebrity about it. People be like, dude, you're the guy that fell off the balcony.
No shit.
There's a write-up in the article in the newspaper about it.
The Observer?
Gastonia. Okay. Gaston Gazette, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would go out to bars and they'd be like, yo, you're the guy that fell off the balcony, let's do shots. And I'm like, sure, let's go.
Yeah.
And so forever until 2 years ago, I was I didn't know if I got pushed. I didn't know if I jumped. I didn't know what happened. I got shown in an ayahuasca ceremony. It was in the middle of the Amazon jungle, 3 a.m, and the whole jungle lit up like this, like daylight. And it was, I was at that, the medicine took me back to that moment. Cause it's a big moment in my life.
Sure. I'm sure deep suppression, right? Yeah.
Deep that I have a lot of my right shoulder's messed up about it. My right hip, I have no feeling cause I landed on my right side. And it's something that absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. As all things do, but this was a big one.
Sure.
And so I'm back at this moment. I'm remembering what happened. I want to remember. And the ayahuasca showed me, it just came booming voice.
A movie screen.
That was a suicide attempt.
Wow.
You were so filled with shame that you decided in that moment, I can't look in the mirror, can't look at friends in the eye. And it was so 2009 was that was about the middle of the whole alcoholic experience. I was 35.
Yeah.
So I continued to drink for 3 more years. And that, well, I guess it wasn't in the middle, but it was more towards the end. But I mean,
back third, but still,
yeah,
it's not like that sobered you up.
No,
right.
That was another thing that gave me more permission to rage more.
So you were looking at it like, let's party because I'm invincible.
100%. I used to say that. Yeah. I used to claim invincibility to my friends, to everybody that listened. Like, look, I've survived all this asthma, cancer,
asthma,
choking, all these. I could name 100 different things. I got hit by a bike on my car one time.
You were unbreakable. You were the movie.
I would use that example all the time. Like, I am Bruce Willis and unbreakable. Yeah. And so that was one of the depths. It was that. I got cancer again 2 years later.
Mouth?
Yep, same spot.
Did you have a cause? Were you a smoker or?
No smoker, no dip. It was, the first time I got it was an ulcer. So I had an ulcer on this side of my jaw right here. And it was, I just drank and it just was an open wound that alcohol kept rushing over. Oh boy. And alcohol being a carcinogen, it just exacerbated it. And then I didn't know, like between 2009 and 2011, the first 2 cancer incidences, the information came to surface that binge drinking can be one of the leading causes of oral or throat cancer.
Interesting. Well, it makes sense.
Yeah. Totally, 100%. And so 2011, the spot where they had the cancer removed blistered up and opened up, and it developed precancerous cells there. So they had to go in and remove those. I just had cancer again last year in the same spot. And this time it was way different. I mean, I haven't drank or done drugs since 2012.
Well, what changed in 2012?
So 2012, this was also the depth was, I had been sober for a year, not a year, 11 and a half months. And I had a friend come in town for another football game. And he was like, hey, you want to have a beer? His friend from high school who I hadn't really talked to since high school. And I was like, yeah, love one. And just decided in that moment that I'd been sober for basically a year. Like, I'm good. Like, I think I got this. First weekend went great. Second weekend, okay. Third weekend, off to the fucking races. Like cocaine, alcohol, hookers, like the whole thing. Yeah. Strip clubs. And for 2 months that continued. Wow. Pretty much, like, if I wasn't sleeping, I was drinking and doing drugs. My house got broken into by my drug dealer. I had just bought a 65-inch TV. Yeah. Stole that. I ended up in jail for 8 nights one time for a DUI. Wow. That was in the middle of North Carolina, in between Charlotte and Asheville. I was 7 a.m. going to visit my dad, drinking 4 Locos, driving down the road. That was 8 nights in jail. That was in the middle of that. And then 2012, November 21st, 4 a.m, I'm sitting at my kitchen table. Everybody, all my quote unquote friends had just left. So the people I would do drugs with and my drug dealer. And I had this moment come over me of seeing all my family's faces in front of me, feeling physically beat up and painful. I had I had just fallen down, so I had a cracked elbow, and in that moment, it just washed over me that this cannot continue. I cannot go on like this. So whatever has to happen from this moment forward, I'm scared and I don't know what to do. And I was supposed to move out of my house. It was 4 a.m. The movers were coming at 8 a.m. And my dad had given me a few $1,000s to pay the movers. I had spent all that on drugs and alcohol. Wow. And had not packed up one single box of the house. Yeah. And so partially I was like, well, this is going to be really bad because the lease is up in 4 hours and I don't have anything done and I have no money to take care of it. And in that moment, I said, this is my moment to change everything. So I called 911 and said, I told them I'm having suicidal thoughts. I wasn't, to be fully honest at the time. I also knew that I had called them before in moments, years before, and told them, like, I just done a ton of cocaine. I'm feeling really scared. And they will tell you, like, you need to sleep it off. Like, they're not going to dispatch services that could be used for something else.
You wanted someone to come.
Yeah, I wanted to be saved.
Yeah.
And so I knew, though, if you tell them you're having scary thoughts, they have to.
They come
get you. So they did. And I spent 7 days in the psych ward. in North Carolina. I literally went from the psych ward, from the hospital, got in a van, airport, rehab in Michigan, 6 weeks there, and then another rehab in Utah for 3 more months, and then sober living for 3 months. And that was it. Never.
It's like a 6-month journey though.
9 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why
those locations? Why Michigan and Utah?
So Michigan was my family's decision. I was in the psych ward at the time. I didn't have access to internet. I just said.
But why specific? Was there a specific facility there?
It was a facility. So I had tried 12 steps for so long that it was like, I was like, anything, just not 12 steps, please.
Yeah.
And so they searched non-12 step based. And actually, it's based on Scientology, was this rehab.
The Michigan place? Yeah.
Really crazy experience.
Are you a Scientologist?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. And I get there and I mean, it was a shit show. Like there was people literally, there's a liquor store on the corner of the road. So kids would sneak out, and I say kids, like 22-year-old kids would.
Well, you're in your 30s at this point, right?
I was 38.
Yeah.
And so they would sneak out, get smokes and booze, and come back and sit in this like back corner of the property, drinking and smoking at night.
Yeah.
And then come back in, and my roommate comes in like reeking of booze, and I'm like, they're not serious about getting sober, and I'm sitting here like, this is life go time for me.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they make you do a program, and you have to complete the program before you can leave. And so it usually takes about 2.5 months, and I did it in 6 weeks because I said, I am not staying here any longer. And I knew at this point now, I said, okay, 12 steps is the way.
Right.
I said, let me slow down. Let me just like accept the fact that, like, you know, you'll hear a lot of alcoholics when they're in the throes of it, of sobriety, not sobriety. AA doesn't work for me. No, it doesn't work for anybody. You have to work for it.
Right.
And that was my big shift here. And so I went this rehab in Utah called Cirque Lodge. I had been there in 2007 and felt amazingly taken care of. The quality of care was great. The social workers were great. The counselors were great. The experience is very outdoors. It's Utah, so there's a lot of hiking, and I just knew that was the place that I was going to go. That was going to be my best shot, like the best quality of care.
Yeah.
And so I called them up, and as a past resident, they hook you up with some discounts, and they're like, yeah, please come back. And so I went back there for 2 months, and then I did a sober living house for 3 months in Salt Lake City, and then I did another month at a buddy's house in Salt Lake City, and that's when I moved to San Francisco. And I've been super blessed that I've never had a desire to have any drink of alcohol since that day in 2012.
What happened with the cancer last year?
So, what happened with the cancer last year? Shame. Victimhood.
Meaning you're saying the cancer was caused as a result?
Cancer was shame-fueled. Cancer.
I mean, go through that.
Yeah.
That can sound very provocative.
Yeah, it's any physical ailment that we have, anything from a sprained ankle to the common cold to cancer, has an emotional root. And anything, if you find the right thing inside of you, the trauma, the emotion, whatever it is, the physical ailment will go away. A lot of, like, if we look at masculine and feminine balance in our body, the left side of the body is the feminine, the right side is the masculine. A lot of times, you know, my right shoulder is the one that got messed up in the fall because I was so tired of being a man on this planet. So my masculine side, I was like, okay, subconsciously, I'm going to mess up my masculine side. My left ring finger is it dislocated at playing basketball in high school. I got so much rejection from women, from girls in high school, that subconsciously I said, I'm going to take the ring finger, the marriage finger.
Sure.
I'm just going to mess this finger up and take it off the table. So I'm going to reject women before they can reject me.
So you're saying the dislocation, which appears accidental, was manifested because of an emotional root.
Emotional wound.
Emotional wound.
Against the feminine, feminine wound.
Is there any illness or ailment at any point in anybody's life that is not rooted in emotional pain?
No.
Okay. What about a baby that gets cancer?
That baby chose that cancer.
How do you? Oh, wow, that's interesting. How? Give me a.
Well, the baby and the parents. Like, the baby chose those parents as its portal entry point to the world. So whatever's going on in the parents' world at that time, decided that we are going to decide to have a child that has an illness, cancer. My parents, asthma, allergies. I had to be emergency C-sectioned. My mom actually thought I was cancer when she first got pregnant with me. She thought she had cancer. And so the parents decide on a karmic soul subconscious level that we, for some reason, are going to be best served. Our highest good, our best shot at this is going to be a baby that has cancer. The baby is bringing something from the lineage, from the epigenetics, from the DNA of the ancestors, whatever it is, and the baby's choosing this experience on Earth. Maybe the baby felt unwanted, and it said, "Okay, if I'm going to come into this world, the way that I'm going to get attention and love is if I'm super sick. Because if I'm not super sick, I'm not going to get enough love."
Is there a label for this? For like a quantum physics or something like that?
Yeah, it's quantum. It's epigenetics is one of them.
Explain the concept.
Epigenetics is the idea that our beliefs create our physical reality.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you say, like, people say, like, "Oh, mental illness runs in my family. Obesity runs in my family." Yeah, because everyone says that for generations. Scarcity, poverty runs in my family because everybody believes that's the story. Just like you could say, every Thanksgiving, we get 3 turkeys at Thanksgiving because that's what we've always done in my family. These things are beliefs that we make into our physical reality. So if you say cancer, like my family has a history of heart disease or high blood pressure, whatever it is, it's because you keep repeating this story. Your genes then will hear you and say, "Okay, cool. I want to be right. I like to be right. So let's have a heart problem. Let's have high blood pressure. Let's experience poverty or depression or obesity because everyone else had, and I want to be part of the tribe too."
Well, talk about that, right? Like, I think there's a lot of tie-in. I was listening to everything you're talking about. I'm like, man, tribe is it's funny you say the word.
Yeah.
There's such an impact here, right? I want to be part of the tribe too. But that all makes sense to me, honestly. Like, I think that, all right. So if you're talking to anyone on the street, there's going to be a range of like, okay, that's just fucking crazy talk to, wow, yeah, that makes total sense. But I think most people if you're looking at like a baseline point here, would agree that your beliefs and your words can shape your reality, right? That's
most is a strong word there.
Well, fair enough. But yes, you would capture more of the population with at least that statement. Like, absolutely. Hey, what you say and what you believe shapes your reality. Mm-hmm. Resolve for me the baby.
Okay.
Like meaning, like, how does the baby then? Where's the baby bringing from? You know, like in other words, I'm on the spectrum. I'm probably not the like, oh yeah, I'm fully bought in on this, but I'm certainly not on the other end of it where it's like, this is fucking crazy talk. Like, no, there's a point here. There's definitely something here. Point, But for me personally, like me having a belief that X is supposed to happen creates manifestation of that. Yep. Buy it. Where's the baby coming from? What energy source? Where is it from? Like, how does the baby make a decision in that regard?
The baby's soul made a decision before it landed on this earth, before it came through that portal, the feminine portal of its experience on this earth. So the baby made a decision. The soul of that baby that's been reincarnated over and over and over, picked up somewhere along the line. Most likely, like when I talked about, like, this is my soul contract is to experience asthma and allergies, to heal lineage, to heal something from the past. You know, I came into the world, cancer, asthma, allergies, whatever it was day one. Yeah. Minute one, it was here. And so this baby has decided that maybe that, and again, it's the baby and the parents and the collective decide that this is the experience that we're all three going to have, because we all three need it in order for us to experience the highest evolution of our experience on this planet. Yeah. And so the baby can pull from, the baby's soul says, I have experienced rejection, abandonment, maybe persecution for something in my life before that I need to bring into this lifetime so that I can experience and clear. Mm. And so the baby decides that I'm going to have, infant cancer. And so that cancer then provides the purge of the the story, the emotion tied to that cancer from the DNA, from the lineage of the family. Now, say that baby cures the cancer, the childhood leukemia, whatever it is, and keeps having it because the baby's been told, okay, so you had and everyone believes you had childhood cancer, you're always going to be predetermined to having this. And so the baby will keep the child, the baby, the toddler, the child, the teenager, the young adult will keep manifesting this reality because it's the belief, it's the emotion that they haven't cleared yet.
So this is all. So reincarnation is one of the foundational principles of epigenetics.
Well, that's interesting. Not quite. Yes, and
okay.
The epigenetics is. The reincarnation is more, you get into the quantum stuff. So epigenetics is more about, it's conversations, words, thoughts, actions that manifest physical reality. So if grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather all were obese and the child comes out and has weight problems. That's an epigenetics. That's a story that the genes have essentially taken on this belief, and the genes now have mutated into this obesity thing. Now, reincarnation is more you could say a dog could be reincarnated as a person, or a person could be reincarnated as an eagle.
Am I using the term when I said reincarnation? I'm thinking that the soul recycles itself. The soul comes back.
Yeah, the soul will pick different avatars on this planet. So the avatar that I chose on this planet is the one that I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
Same for you. Same for that baby with cancer. So the soul, this is more you getting into the quantum, where it's the soul could have come from some Cleopatra, could have been one of the incarnations of this soul and come through in this lifetime to have this experience. And so there's an epigenetics in the sense that these thoughts, beliefs, actions. So a lot of times you'll hear about people talk about a witch wound. So a lot of feminine healers or even masculine healers will talk about they don't use their voice a lot. They don't speak their truth a lot, and they don't step into their power as healers because for a long time, that action, that behavior was looked at as weird, and you would get killed for it, burned at the stake.
Yeah.
And so now the epigenetics or the quantum, the emotion behind it is that memory still lives in the DNA. And so the memory is what stops people from you'll see a lot of throat chakra, people clearing their throat, or inability to speak their truth. And it's because in the past, someone along some reincarnation of their soul experienced a hanging or a burning at the stake or a drowning for speaking their truth, for stepping into their power and being a healer.
That's so fascinating.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is a 17-hour conversation.
Oh, I'll bet. I was going to say, we can go so deep on this. And I know, if for people who are listening, going back to there being an audience here, some people are going to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Other people are going to be like, oh, this plays on a part of me that I've always sort of thought was real. And there's some sort of science behind it or whatever you want to call it. So it's very interesting to me because I struggle with the idea, especially having kids, maybe that's where it does change. It changed my perspective. You ever see that Motley Crue movie on Netflix?
Oh, is that where they're shooting up heroin?
I think so. Yeah. In the beginning of it, Nikki Sixx, right? He was the guitarman, right? The kid version of him was being thrown into a bedroom and yelled at and all that stuff. And it's a movie, right? But after kids, it's oh my God, I see my kid there, right? So the part I struggle with on all of this, again, I don't have a strong belief one way or the other, to be honest with you, other than there's some foundational things that I do believe that you're speaking to that play on those. But the innocence of the kid, the innocence of the baby, it's hard for me right now, at least in the year, the time, the frequency that I'm on right now, to allow for or acknowledge or feel like it's possible that my kids, these amazing little beings that I have such a, and when you say it now, I'm could I manifest? I have such a fear of them living the life you had, right? I have such a fear of that. And I don't want to manifest that. Nobody else in my lineage has lived the life you have, really, right? So it's not likely, but still I fear it. But to think that they might have chosen whatever path they might go down, or even like my oldest does have some food intolerances, like choosing that and the impact of that, I struggle with that.
I'm sure that's the very human side of this life.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer that we get to have these conversations about the quantum fields and epigenetics and past lives and emotional healing and all this. And we get to acknowledge and deeply fucking honor this human experience.
You know what's been interesting? This is a quick aside. Over the last 2 days I've been here. You're my 8th interview. And everyone I've talked to is very, very like their craft has been honed. You included, right? Like they know their shit. They know their position. It's got a lot of research behind it. And I don't know if this is intentional, but everyone's avoiding the word "but," which I really like. You have said "and" where normally a "but" would go, and I heard that over the last 2 days.
Yeah,
which is that intentional?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's give me a little bit on.
"But" is a minimizer.
Yeah, true.
Like you could say like I hear what you're saying, and it resonates, and I understand it, and I'm curious about it.
But
I have this experience of having a child where I have this deep empathy and fear of him having a terrible life.
Right.
Or you could say they both get to exist.
Yeah.
And I have this very human experience. Yeah, it's huge.
That is empowering.
Like when you say "and," you give, because "but" is like this or that.
Yeah.
Like this can't exist without that. Everything gets to exist.
I love that. So that gives me some really good foundation on where you are, what your sort of what your belief system is, and all of that. Yeah. Take that back to shame creating cancer a year.
Okay, so I had noticed in that ayahuasca in Peru for 3 weeks. The big download was...
Feel my jaw now as you talk about jaw.
Yeah.
I'm like grabbing my jaw.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Don't worry, it's not contagious.
No, I know.
I don't have it anymore.
Yeah. It's not spreading to me.
Yeah. So 2021, June in Peru, doing ayahuasca. Ayahuasca just spent 3 weeks showing me how much shame has fueled my life.
Is that your first one?
The first ayahuasca, yeah. And it wasn't all terrible. Like it was the most important experience I've ever had in my life, the peak life experience.
Yeah.
And it brought to my attention the amount of shame that I carry in this body. And that's where I found that suicide attempt was, all right, Aya, you've shown me that I carry shame. Show me how deep this goes. And she's like, boom. You tried to commit suicide in 2009 because you're so shameful. Wow. And so shame was brought to the surface of my existence. And around that time, I noticed that spot in my mouth got a little different. It's always felt a little different because there's a scar there.
Sure.
And in your mouth, like everything feels like it's the size of your head. Mm-hmm. And so I just noticed a little difference in it. And I'm like, okay. So the doctors had cleared me in 2018. They cleared me like, you don't have to come to the doctor anymore unless something massive shifts in the size or the shape or the feeling of this place in your mouth. And so something shifted and I noticed it and I'm like, oh, it feels weird in my tongue. And nothing changed though. It kind of just maintained. It was just there. And so then fast forward to last year, 2022, I went to Burning Man and profound ceremonial experience at Burning Man. Another one of those moments where like, oh, I would see that and be like, other people get to do that. It's not for me to do because I don't deserve to have that. I'm not worthy of that. Okay. And I get to Burning Man. And so I'm like, holy crap, I'm here at Burning Man. Like this has been on my radar for 15 years. And like, so the worth comes up, the deserving comes up, the shame comes up. Like I'm here with these like high powered people, like, like celebrities and high powered coaches and all these people. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm just this shameful little boy. And so at Burning Man, we were in the temple, and we were my girlfriend and I were in the temple and talking about all this shame that I carry. And all of a sudden in that moment, my eyes started to like water and get really red. And this part of my mouth, like as we walked out and left that day, it started to bleed.
Come on.
Yeah. And so like leaving Burning Man for the first like week or two afterwards, any movement, like talking, eating, kissing, anything that I moved my tongue would just like a shooting pain in my jaw. So I'm like, wow, like this is really a terrible, and I was literally spitting like pink saliva, blood. And so I kind of had that doctor in the back of my head, like, unless something major happens, you don't have to come back.
Seems major.
Yeah. And so November, that was in September. And so it kind of, it died down, and it was like, okay. It got to the point where I'm like functional again. I can eat and talk and kiss and all that stuff. And then again, in about the end of October, it flared up again. And I was like, all right. So I went to see a naturopath because I'm like, I have, as much as Western medicine has done for me with asthma and allergies and all that, the things I know now, I have a lot of questions. So I was like, I'm going to go see a naturopath about this. I found this like 40-year naturopath. I'm like, she's seen it all. And so I go to see her, and I'm like, we're talking, and she's we're talking about this emotional tie to everything. And I'm like, oh my God, so much alignment. And I'm like, I have, in the middle of it, I have this one thing in my mouth, and I lift my tongue up and show her, and she's like, you need to go get a biopsy right now. That's cancer. You need to find out what stage that is. You need to get that treated. Like, that needs immediate attention. So 4 days later, I went to see an ENT.
4 days later?
Yeah, it was this. She was like, basically, we need to stop this appointment right now, and you need to call this ENT.
Yeah, but like, you didn't go that day? You weren't able to go that day?
No, I couldn't get in that. I couldn't get in that quickly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. This was like, it was like a Thursday, Friday,
I'm thinking
Monday.
like 4 days feels like forever. She didn't go now.
Yeah. It was as soon as I could get in.
Got it.
Yeah. And so I go to see the ENT, and he looks at it, and he's like, yep. All right, so we're going to do a biopsy, and we're going to, find out what the treatment plan is for this, what stage it is. And I said, Doc, like, I understand bedside manner, and like, you're not supposed to, but what's your take on this? And he said, well, I can't say exactly. I don't know. I've seen a lot of this, and that is very, very ugly, and it would not surprise me one bit if that was cancer. So now I've twice basically been confirmed that I have cancer. And so I scheduled the biopsy for, we were going to Costa Rica to do ayahuasca again and serve the psychedelic that we serve, my girlfriend and I, down in Costa Rica. And so I couldn't schedule the biopsy was scheduled for December 13th. So about 7 or 8 weeks later. And I knew in that moment when I heard...
Why is it taking so long? Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the Costa Rica trip, and I knew that...
Oh, you pushed it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
got
chose.
it. Yeah.
I mean, with these things, like, yeah, there is like urgency, but again, it's not like, like you're bleeding out of your neck.
Yeah.
Like, there's not much that's going to get worse in a month.
Okay, got it.
And so as soon as I heard that I had cancer from those two doctors, my first thought, my first like physical feeling was, this is not a physical thing. This is not like my body like doesn't feel like this is the beginning of some long, arduous cancer journey. This feels like the end of something.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this was the only, like, everything that kept telling me, everything I kept hearing from the downloads from source. I would do meditations. I would do breath work about it. And I was like, and the second thing is, I am sure as shit not going down the chemo radiation route. So I did all this research. I was looking at holistic alternative treatment centers in Mexico, stuff they can't do in the United States. And I knew that plant medicine was going to be part of it. And I said, I'm going to, go deep into this. I'm going to go deep into this shame and this emotional and the trauma. Like, what is it that I have not uncovered yet that I need to uncover to purge this out of my body? Because this is what this felt like. Felt like the purge. It felt like something just needed to come out of my body and be rid of it. And so I go down to Costa Rica and do the ayahuasca. Third night, I take 4 cups of ayahuasca, the most I've ever taken. And it was, the last 4 hours of that night were some of the hardest 4 hours of my life. I got shown every single thing that I've ever been ashamed of in my entire life. And like, not shown, I went back to that experience. And I felt it from like the guy being up at 7 a.m. when all of his friends had been to bed and he's still up doing rails. Like, all of it was shown to me. The kid that was like walking through the hallway and the kids were in my ear breathing like they had asthma. Like, all of it. And it was 30 minutes of that, 30 minutes of just divine healing rushing over my body.
Oh, wow. So it was almost like,
here it is. And like, let's get, here it is some more. And yeah.
Oh my God.
So 4 hours of this. And I get back from Costa Rica, and there's a shadow side to this whole thing too, I'll tell you. I get back from Costa Rica, I get the biopsy done on like a Tuesday. They call me on a Friday, be like, cancer's gone. I was like, oh, fuck.
That gave me a chill.
Yeah. And that's the power of dealing with the emotions and the physical and freeing the physical when we do this emotional work, this work on the traumas that we carry.
Define shadow side real quick before you go into that. What is it?
Yeah,
what is
so the shadow is that when I heard I had cancer, that little kid that had gotten so much attention and love and saving when he had asthma and allergies, the victim, literally started celebrating in my body. I was like, yes, I get to be a victim again. I get to be in that attention. I'm going to get so much attention from this. I'm going to get so much love from this. I'm going to I need this. Wow. That was my experience of hearing it on the inside, like the inner kid. And then when I heard that it was gone, that I had cured it, that kid got sad because I don't get to be a victim anymore. That was the final purge. I know it was tough for me to like get my head around. It took about a week.
What do you do with that? The kid got sad. So
yeah,
you
grieve? I grieved that little kid's desire to think that he needed to be sick, to be saved, to be loved.
How long did that take you?
2 weeks, 7 to 10 days.
Was that just like depression? What did that feel like?
Yeah, it was a really low feeling. Like I thought, like for what I do, like I thought this was going to be like something on my resume of like I'm going to get on stages and talk about how I'm currently going through cancer in this holistic and alternative way. Like,
you had this victim thing.
I had this victim thing that was like, I thought that I needed cancer to experience something from this life.
God damn.
And that little kid that got so much, like that little kid got so much attention.
Yeah.
Every time he had an asthma attack, the family would descend on the hospital. I would get my people in town. I would so much sympathy and I experienced that so much that I made up that that's what love is.
When did asthma go away?
Asthma and allergies basically went away when I was 35, and I made a massive nutritional change. And then over the years, and then I had asthma come back right after that Denver experience. When I had that deep depression, I had asthma come back, and it was one of those things that I thought, like, I kept it around because I thought I needed it.
What was the nutritional change real quick?
Gluten and dairy.
You got rid of those.
Just cut them out.
So that gets rid of allergies. That gets rid of asthma. But your depression, the darkness like that, it conjured up at that point.
Yep.
The victim.
Yep.
And hey, great! Now we're asthmatic again. We can play this card.
And honestly, I was so unfamiliar and scared of calmness and peace and being actually valuable to the world. Because in San Francisco, right before I moved to Denver, looking back, things were actually great.
Yeah.
Great job. I had a sweet ass truck. I had a nice apartment in San Francisco. I had an amazing girlfriend that loved me, that was supporting me. Like everything was really good. And I'm like, this feels really weird. I don't like it. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a grenade.
That crazy sabotage. Yeah.
Because my nervous system was like, no. We like it down here better.
Yeah.
We can't handle this freedom, this peace, this like successful, happy life.
How do you avoid that? You have to build a foundation.
Yeah, you have to build the somatic body. You got to expand the nervous system.
How?
Go to your edges.
What do you mean by that?
So it means that we know. So an edge is edge. Some people call it a trigger. I call it an edge. So you go to this. You have these moments in your life where you recoil. Like for me, it was that successful career and great girlfriend. Other people experience it as intimacy, recoiling from intimacy. Other people, money's a big one. People that yo-yo diet, they have this experience of like getting in great shape and losing that fat, which is essentially a safety blanket for them because their nervous system can't handle being seen as a sexy, attractive person. And so they will recoil from this. And these are their edges. So you go do breath work, you go do psychedelics, just do work as a fucking human. Like go into a room full of men or women and share your shame. Shame starts where we talked about, where it's rejection or humiliation for a basic need. That same shame dies when you go to a safe place and you tell that story. So you go to that safe place and you say, I'm ashamed because of XYZ. Your body's going to freak out. You're gonna cry, you're gonna shake, you're gonna put your head down, you're gonna cover your eyes, you're gonna cover your mouth, you're gonna cross your arms. Your body's gonna do all these things to cover up. Open your body, open your eyes, put your head up, breathe into it, feel it, and that's purging the experience. That's healing the shame.
I hold this story. You tell me if it's a limiting belief from your perspective or if it's truth, So what I've heard what I've heard of your story is, you've gone through all these traumas in your life, all these things. You've unpacked the past. And now you're kind of more, you went from my childhood was great to, oh my God, my childhood sucked, to I'm grateful for what I've been through. And you've gone down the spiritual journey of what was it called? Epigenetics and incorporating all of this stuff.
Physics,
You have this intense ayahuasca experience. You purge this victim child that was celebrating. You grieve. It's gone. I hold a belief that it's never over, that there's always work to be done. Is that a limiting belief, or are you truly at a place where?
No, that's not well.
It's both.
This is an and. This is a yes and. The work is never done. Absolutely, 100%. This is it. You do this. You can. If you stop doing the work, you go backwards.
That's true.
If you stop developing, growing, looking at your things, like acknowledging what comes up. So these triggers, these edges that come up, if you don't look at it, now that edge is now a prison. If you look at it, you transcend it and it expands out. And this is building a capacity in your body. So the work is never done. And if you're constantly seeking out struggle, if you're constantly seeking out keeping yourself in scarcity, keeping yourself in obesity, keeping yourself in mental illness, that work gets to be done, completed. You get to purge those things from your vortex, from your nervous system, from your body, so that you can experience, because there's things behind all that. Like the depression is one of those things where it's like, okay, depression is a repeating pattern that a lot of people experience. Like you'll have 3 years of like deep, dark depression, 3 years of like, I'm good. And then it comes back.
Yeah. It's so funny. You make a great point about the work. I think that's the exhausting part. And it's got to be acknowledged, but it can feel like the exhaust. I think about Gobundance. People join Gobundance. They're in it for a year, then they leave. And that not a lot, but some do. And that always, whenever I see that, I'm like, huh. Like I have the story that they're saying it didn't work, or, I built some momentum, but, I thought I'd be here after 12 months because that's the timeline we put on the cost, the membership, whatever.
Yeah.
Where to your point, like it doesn't stop. It doesn't end. You can't stop. Once you've made a commitment to developing yourself, once you've made a commitment to growing, like you have to keep growing. And that can feel really heavy, really
heavy. And when you embrace it, it's like, what am I capable of?
Yeah.
I'm clearing. So like AA, for example, like I had 6 years in AA. First 6 years of my sobriety, AA. No, I haven't been to AA since.
Yeah.
And I have grown. I needed every minute of those 6 years in those rooms. I've grown more in the past 5 than I ever did in those 6. Wow. Like by 15-fold.
Yeah. Because
I knew that was that part of the work, that version of the work was over. I felt myself plateauing out. So, Gobundance, like some people can come into Gobundance and they're going to get to where they wanted to get to. And it may not be where they think they wanted to get to, but it's going to be where they wanted to get to. And if they make up in their head that, Gobundance didn't work for me, I'm out. That's where they wanted to get to. That they wanted to be right about, masterminds never work for me, whatever it is.
That's a great point.
Or people will get to a certain point in 12 months with Gobundance and be like, that was great. I got this.
I'll take it from here.
Yeah. Or there's something else that's calling to me now.
Sure. That's true. Good point.
It's not even like, and some people will say, I'm good on my own.
No, you're right though. It's like, hey, I've done that. There's certain things where it's like, all right, this is taking me as far as it can take me. And I need to now like relay. It's like a relay race, right?
Yeah.
An internal relay, like hand the baton to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like to the next level to take me there, right?
And
Whatever
it's not even to say there's like something better than Gobundance.
No.
Worse. It's just like, I need a different perspective on something.
And to your point about Anne, like that was coaching for me, right? Like I joined this community, I get around these men and I start to really like unlock things and make changes in my life that were important to me. And I realized I needed more of a one-on-one experience, right? So coaching became like, all right, you know what? Now I need to like narrow this in a bit and get deep on me and what I'm doing and everything else. And even like that, it's like, you know what? Podcasting became my thing where it started in real estate. So, and I need to invest time, energy, money into this discipline, this art that means so much to me. Right. So that's a great point.
Well, and it's like the same thing as you're like in the past year jumping out on the plant medicine path.
Yeah.
That's your bat signal to the source. I'm ready for more.
That's true.
I'm ready for a experience of more because I know there's more available to me. This is my this is how I'm going to get there.
So funny. My first experience, I've shared this, was dark. My second experience was light. And I went into that second experience. It was a little bit less of a dose, but still, I went into that second experience with fear of the dark. Like, not fear, but it was almost like calling it like, please don't hurt me again.
Yeah.
And it didn't. All right. It was a very, this is a terrible example, but it's the one that comes to mind. It's like people who drink to the buzz that have that control. Like, I just want to feel a little bit light tonight, right? Like that have the control. I feel like I have this, like, I want to feel that buzz and then let it come down, but I just want to be there for a minute. It was like that, right? On the other end of it. It was a spiritual buzz, if you will. But what about community for you? What does that look like? So it's funny. I mean, I got to believe at one point, you said it, you're around, you know, at your tables, your drug dealer and other drug addicts or addicts or whatever the case may be. What do you do? How do you, I mean, you went with Aubrey Marcus. These are big names. I mean, in this, Aubrey Marcus, Preston Smiles. You mentioned David Osborne. You were at Burning Man with him. Whoever else I forget the other names you brought up, but talk about community, tribe, whatever phrase you like to use for it, and the impact it's having in your life today.
Yeah, tribe. We are tribal beings. Like, it's been that way forever. You know, you look at the single cell organisms, they're little, like, they're little pods. They swim around the primordial ooze in. You know, we have been tribal beings, and this is where one of the basic human needs is tribe. This is part of the experience I had as a kid that was so traumatic, was that I felt exiled from the tribe. So if you look at blue zones all around the world, there's like 6 or 7 of them. These blue zones, they have certain things in common.
It's a blue zone.
Blue zone is an area of the world where people live well into like 100, 110 years old.
Okay.
With
That's what they call that?
With high quality of life.
Yep.
I think there's 7 around the whole world. So they did studies on these blue zones. And a lot of them, it's like diet and they're active. And the one thing that they all have in common, because there's one in like somewhere outside LA, there's a couple, I think the Philippines might be one. There's some in like, they're all over the world. But the thing is like, they're not all like uncivilized areas of the world where it's still like pure and not commercialized. Like, they're in these areas of the world. And the one thing that they all have in common is community. They're all community based. So one of them, for example, I'm not sure where it is, but they get assigned like a 10-person pod when they're born, the day of their birth. Everyone, like the kids that are born within an hour of each other, get assigned your 10 people for life. And they have evidence that these people will be like 95, 98 years old, going to meet each other at the coffee shop, riding motorcycles to meet each other at 98 years old, because they have this connection to people in a tribe that keeps them going, that makes them feel needed. So if you look at things like cold plunges, a cold plunge will trigger, the reason that they're so hard and so people are so scared of them is because what that does is it triggers the reptilian, the animal brain, the oldest part of our brain that still remembers being a caveman, to winters and being exiled from the tribe. So we think that if we're exiled from the tribe in winter, we die. Because we're going to freeze to death because we don't have the warmth of the tribe, the fire, all that. Yeah. And so for me, tribe is everything. You know, in AA, like the one thing that kept me in AA a little bit longer than I wanted to be in there was that I was afraid I was going to lose the men that I had built community with. Yeah. And all those, like the 10 or so men that I met we still talk to this day. I mean, they're still in AA. I'm not, and it doesn't matter because we have this little tribe. I have a tribe of like 25 of my guys from college. We go on a golf trip every year. We just did our 25th year. Yeah. And it's tribe. It's around here in Austin. The community here in Austin is second to none. I mean,
I know.
It's
wild.
Makes me
want to move here.
It's wild. I don't blame you. Like, I think you should. Like, it is wild how it's almost weird at first because you're like, why is everybody just like, people legitimately care about me as a human being, not because of what I bring, even not because of the money I have or the coaching I do or anything. It's like, no, they want the best for you. Yeah. And everyone here supports everybody in their art, in their healing, in their modalities, in their breath work, in their sound journeys, whatever it is. Football games, like I think sports is another one where it's like, fan bases. Like we build it, like we meet someone who's like a Red Sox fan, a fellow Red Sox fan. I saw you wearing your Red Sox shirt.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Real quick on that. I bought that when I lived in Boston as a Yankee fan as an ugly sweater day shirt.
Oh, different story.
I fucking hate the Patriots. Celtics and Bruins, I'm good, but continue. I'm sorry.
Bruins are looking good. Yeah. But you look at it like these, like everyone 100,000 Michigan, the big house. I'm a huge Wolverines fan. Like 110, 115,000 people tribing it up on Saturdays.
Yeah. Just
having a blast. Like we have this built into our DNA in our society, and the history is lone wolves never make it.
That's true.
And tribe is so important to be supported. When you're going through a tough time, you've got to have like at least 3 to 5 for men, for women in your phone. You can say, bro, I am not well right now. I need something. I need a hug. I need someone to talk to.
Seeing it now, man. Like it's funny in Gobundance. So like I've been there again 4 years plus, and it's based in entrepreneurship. So that's kind of like the lead domino of everything, right? Mm-hmm. And then of course it's like but I've been so focused on that. And I want to continue to build that, but I want to be in better health. I want to have better relationships, better adventure, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So you incorporate all these different pillars or whatever. But in the last 6 months, 8 months, as the economy has turned, as things have been a little bit more turbulent, you're starting, lines of credit are being pulled, all of this stuff. You're starting to see that these guys are coming in. I mean, I could go through our Facebook group right now and pull out 6 posts of men being extremely vulnerable about, hey, not broken, not completely out, not bankrupt, not like that. I'm sure that'll happen, but hey, it's been a fucking tough 3 months because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I need to share it here. And then the support of these guys rallying around each other, because we're all feeling something, right? Like a little bit of a change all the way to a big change in what we do. And there's a lot of identity tied up in that as well, for sure. So, but to your point, the idea of tribe when everything's going great is awesome. You got to have it, right? Like, but the moment that there's a vulnerability, the moment that there's a challenge that you have in your life, like that's where this thing becomes exponentially more important.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. Exponentially.
Crazy.
I mean, like, and that's too, like a lot of times, I mean, women do it too, but as men, it's like, this is the epigenetics of it. Men, lock down, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, throw some dirt on it. Like this is a thing that's breaking. We're breaking free from this now, but as men, like it's just in our DNA, like in our cells from ancestors and generations. It's like, I got this.
It's a weird pressure with men too. I was talking to Stephanos about this. It's like, you're right. Men have always traditionally been like, just rub dirt on it, right? But there is a movement where men are willing to be a little bit more open and vulnerable, but at the same time, there's this tidal wave of a narrative around masculinity that's become synonymous with toxic like whether people believe it exists or not. Toxic masculinity in many circles is masculinity. Like masculinity is toxic, right? So there's this sort of external attack on being a man, on the masculine energy of a man, if you will, right? So you've got that coming at you while you're trying to maybe open up. So you're going to not only recede, but maybe dig in even more on this recession, which leads to alcoholism, pain, this, that, and the other. Suicide. That's huge with men right now. Like it's
74% of all suicides are men.
That is something that people don't talk about enough, right? Like you hear Jordan Peterson talk about this stuff, but that is such an incredible stat. Like
it's ridiculous.
The pain men feel. So tribe, to your point, of other men. I did this interview with Brian Barczyk, who's a YouTuber who unfortunately has terminal cancer. He's a Gobundance guy as well, has a year to live. It's a 2.5 hour. It's just a very open, vulnerable interview. And he's got a massive following. So this video got hundreds of thousands of views, this interview or whatever. And I go through the comments. And one woman said, I love Brian, but fuck Gobundance. It said this in the comments. She's like, a bunch of like frat boys who grew up to play together with all your I'm like, first of all, we just had a guy on to be vulnerable and talk about, what he's got going on. The intention was to help him raise money for a cause that he's trying to, like where are you getting this from other than, it's men hanging out with men? Fuck you, right?
Yeah.
Like for some reason it's bad, but to your point, the suicide rate, the death rate, the pain, the depression rates, all of this stuff are men. Mostly men right now, right? That there's an imbalance there that's not being recognized.
Yeah.
So community, tribe, and uplifting people in your life to me is like, it's the currency beyond currency right now for men.
Yeah, and I think it gets to be acknowledged too that there's some men that have done masculinity wrong.
Sure.
And that's the narrative. whether it's the cops with George Floyd or whether it's Donald Trump or like Andrew Tate, like you can put any kind of name on it you want.
Agreed.
Then this is the thing about the humans, I think especially women, the level of threat awareness has to be higher than the level of, say, joy awareness. Because the level of threat, it's easier to be prepared for threat than it is to be prepared for joy. You don't have to prepare for joy. It's like joy, it's easy, but threat, like you want to see that coming. So these men that have abused the privilege of being a man have upped the threat level, and they're the ones that get the eyes on, because that's the thing you have to watch out for. When underneath it, there's guys like us and Preston and Stephanos and all these guys doing this work to shift the entire narrative, and that's the rising tide that's going to lift all ships.
Yeah.
And so
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What's the work you're doing specifically? Who do you work with? Who's your target avatar? Who's your client? Who do you work with?
Yeah. So I mostly work with men. And what I do with men is I help them become a safe presence in their life. So a presence is, being present is one part of it. Being a presence means that it's kind of like when you walk into a room, people know you're there. Not only do they know you're there, the urgency level of the room or the safety level of the room gets into alignment. So what I do is I work with men that have maybe historically been toxic. That was me. That I wasn't toxic. I exhibited toxic behaviors.
Sure.
So I work with men mostly. I've started working with women recently. So it's kind of twofold here. So what I do is I help men become a safe presence, and I help women learn to feel safe again around men.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's similar work with both. Of course, it's different because it's men and women, and the approach is different. And women get to be in my presence or in your presence or in a presence of a safe man, so that they can have a new model. So because they've been in abusive relationships, they've been in toxic, their father, their boyfriends, their brothers. Like there's been a lot of mistreatment of women, and again, this is another ancestral epigenetics thing. Women carry these codes of abuse and oppression. And so now it's easy to go there. And so a lot of women don't trust the masculine, not necessarily even because of something that happened to them, but because they've seen it happen to other women, and they have it in their code, in their DNA code. And so what I do is I work with these women so that they can learn to feel safe, firstly in their own body, trust their own body, and then they can learn to invite men into their life. Because all this trauma comes from an uninvited attack into the woman's nervous system, right? And so I work with the men to stop attacking uninvited, stop attacking in general. I say become a warrior that's not at war.
Yep.
So when you become a warrior, you're not at war. It means that it's what Jordan Peterson talks about, like be dangerous, but don't be a danger.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
It's the same concept.
Be capable of danger, right?
Yeah. And that's true. Like get yourself to the point where you're a badass, like you're a solid, safe man that has complete control over this vessel. These two things they ripple together and they ripple effect. So the men that can show up like that will then be received by a woman, because these men have never been received by a woman before either. So they have the anger, they have the resentments, they have the stories about women, and it's gonna hurt, all this stuff. I'm not good enough. So the core masculine wound is I am not good enough. The core feminine wound is I am too much. And so this has caused these traumas, and this story is passed on and passed on and passed on. So when a woman can learn to feel safe in her body, she can learn to then invite the safe man into her vortex. And that's when they can have a safe, sacred union, trusting relationship. Until that happens though, until the women can get safe here and learn to trust there, and the men can become safe and learn to invite, not attack, not infiltrate, it becomes, how do you penetrate the world? How do you penetrate society? How do you penetrate your woman? All of it becomes, how do you show up in the world? So I help men become safe, show up safely as a safe embodied presence. Yeah. And I help women to feel safe so that they don't just push everything away.
That's incredible. Like that all resonates very much with me. I can see it in elements in my own relationship and other people's relationships that I observe and everything. So that's incredible. I want to ask you one more question, but before we do, what's the best way for people to learn more about you, follow you, find you, websites, anything?
Thank you. Yes. On Instagram is the best. It's at Sam Gibbs Morris, and that's 2 B's, Gibbs.
Got it.
And the website's the same. It's samgibbsmorris.com.
Got you. You have a tattoo or two?
What tattoos?
Oh, yeah, just a couple. Any story on the ink?
Yeah. There's a lot of stories. I mean, I'm pretty much covered.
Well, give me more like, what do tattoos for you? What do they represent? Why do expression of what?
Yeah. I think it's expression of, a lot of, it started, God, it's so funny because there's a conversation around tattoos about it's a trauma response to get a lot of tattoos. Like a lot of people, you'll see tattoos on their throat to cover their throat chakra. Other people you'll see with a tattoo of an actual amplification symbol, like a mandala on their throat. It's like, I am amplifying my throat. I started getting tattoos really started when I was 35. And it was words, it was things that meant something to me. And then it has now morphed into like the expression of me, things I think look cool, things that if I see something like an animal or something about sacred geometry.
Just connects to you?
Yeah, just like it is, I need that. Like I have, the next one's going to be, it's a design that I've drawn myself that's going to be right here.
Wow.
And a lot of it is, I feel like everything that we do, the clothes we wear, the way we look, the words we use are an expression and a prayer. How you live is how you pray. So if you're cultivating, if you see a lot of if there's a lot of people like angry, like it's kind of the reason I don't like death metal. I feel it feels angry.
Yeah.
And I'm just not about I don't really have a desire for anger in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the expression one of the expressions that is true for me is that on the surface it looks biker. A bald head, tattoos. It looks like people like you've been in jail, you're in the military, you have motorcycles. And it's kind of like, I love the kind of contradiction of it, is that I am none of that. I am actually like super zen and calm and peaceful and kind and soft and gentle. And so, but it gets to be an expression of, it just looks cool. I mean, it can get like I can get real deep and esoteric about it, and I can just be like, I just like it.
That's it. That's all you need, man. That's all you need. Sam Gibbs Morris, man. Thanks for coming in last minute. Appreciate you doing this,
Jamie. Thank you so much for reaching out. It's such a pleasure to drop in with you. This was amazing. Thanking you so much for having me.